Hello and welcome. This is Jim Kaufman with Riken Technical College. So this video is going to be about React Lab 1. So I'm going to kind of walk through this whole lab. I'm going to kind of do it from start to finish. Most of this is really just learning to these different commands to create the application. A lot of the code here is going to be pretty much cut and paste code, okay? So I'm going to walk through all of that, and then I'm going to create the whole app, make sure it works, and then I'm actually going to come back through it, and we're going to kind of go line by line pretty much and talk about everything that's happening in this application. So first, you want to make sure that you create your React.js folder within your repository. And then within there, I'm going to make a few updates to this assignment by the time you see this video. So I'm going to make some changes. So after you go ahead and create your React.js app, we're going to open that up in Visual Studio. And then from there, we're going to open up a terminal, and we're going to execute what's called a run create command that's going to go ahead and create the app. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through that. Okay, so here is my repository. So obviously this will be pretty much the same as what you have on for your repository. So I've got the React.js folder. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up in Visual Studio Code. And once that opens, so then we're going to come in here and we're going to go ahead. I already have a terminal running, which is fine. So in here, otherwise, you go up to terminal, right? Up here, new terminal, right? I already have one running. If you do have multiple terminals, so let me just go open this up. So you can always, sometimes, you got to be careful too, is you start, and later when we learn how to start the app, we're not going to be using, one thing we'll not be using live server, okay? Live server was when we were just doing the HTML stuff. For this, we're actually going to be running the app a different way, okay? So we won't be using live server for that. And if you start the server in one terminal, you might try to open it in another one, and you can have some challenges. So, kind of be cognizant of how many shells you have open. Okay, so if you do have too many shells open, you always can close them. Right. So over here it says kill terminal, and I do that. And here I'll just even kill it both. So now we got no terminals at all. Here's a new terminal. This is only one. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is go ahead and enter the command to create the app. And that is npm space create Vite at latest. Vite is this build configuration tool, okay? And so you're saying use the latest version of Vite to create this app called to-do list, okay? And let's use the React template, okay? There's multiple templates that are available. So I think this should work. Go ahead and hit enter. And one thing I got, kind of warn you, and actually I was just playing around earlier, these frameworks and these libraries get updated a lot. So, because actually I taught the second year course, which is about the MERN stack, the Mongo, Express, React Node, that course. And I taught that in the summer, and actually how this works is already different than how it worked in the summer. So we might find a few things along the way. So I'm going to hit the enter key here. And as you can see, this is going to be doing all this stuff. It's asking, should you roll up experimental? We want to hit no. So for here, you just hit the enter key. Okay, you just hit the enter key. It's highlighted as no. Install with npm and start now. Sure. Okay, before you used to have to do some other things. This is newer stuff now, and this is going to go all the way, and it's going to start it up and everything. Before you had to do a couple other steps, it's made it easier actually what it has. So this is just going to kind of create a sample app, kind of what I call scaffolding. Well, it's just going to create all the structure and everything. It's very quick. This used to actually take a while, and it's very quick now. So this is already up and running. Okay. And as if you come up here on the left-hand side in the directory structure, you'll see all of this stuff that it just created, okay? You got a node modules directory. These are all the different node modules. And then you will talk more about that later. Then you have this public directory, and you have the source directory, And then you have some other files here as well. And so you have like a git ignore, some other ones. Yeah, we'll talk more about them later. And then another a very important one is this package.json file. Okay, this is kind of tells us the names of things, what we called it. Okay, the name of the app, what kind of things we can run on this. Now this can be edited. Okay, but this is just the base one that gets created that Vite creates. Okay, here's your dependencies. Here's called dev dependencies. Okay, these dependencies are used when you would say, let's say you're going to create an app and move it to production. The dev dependencies are some special some special tools that you use when you're in a development environment. Okay, so these are some special tools to use. Okay, because this whole idea of Vite isn't something when you actually moved an application to production. Vite can help you move it, but you don't actually move Vite over there. Maybe that's a little confusing to you. We'll talk about more of that in the future. But these dev dependencies, these are just kind of tools that can be used in a development environment. Okay. So down here, you see this, and then you see our localhost right here. So this app is running already on localhost. And if you can just come down here and hit like the control key, hold down the control key, and click on this, okay, you will see this pop up. And here it's Vite plus React, okay. You can click this count, and we'll just keep on counting, okay. This is actually using, hopefully you may have done a little bit of the, some of those questions for that homework assignment, had the different React questions. You know, we talked about the state, so this is holding on to state for this count, okay. So this is just a basic app here. It's using this, okay? So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be replacing what's in here with this to-do app, okay? So first we're going to come in here, and under source, we're going to create some folders. We're going to create, first we're going to create a folder called components, okay? So let's do new folder and type in components. All right, and then in there, we're going to create some files, okay? We're going to create a file called todoform.jsx, all right? We'll do a new file here, and we're going to create that file, all right? And then in here, we're going to go back to our React lab, right? And we're going to cut and paste this code that's in here, okay? And this goes on to multiple, probably pages here. Be careful, you know, always got to be careful copying text. So it should start here at an import statement, and then the last line is going to be this export of the to-do form, okay? Now let's save that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is going to create a JSX file called todoitem.jsx. And in here, I'm going to do that. And then for that one, I'm going to go ahead and grab that code for that one as well. I'm going to drop that in there. Actually, let me tell you one thing that's probably a good idea to do that I should have mentioned. It's probably go ahead and like stop your server, called kill your server, right? So basically to do that, you go down here in the terminal and do Control C, okay? And it stopped that server. The reason for that is sometimes when you're making some changes here, this thing kind of hot deploys. So it's going to constantly, every time you make an update, it's going to kind of like recreate it, right? Recreate the app in localhost. And sometimes if you're doing something, it'll just start throwing a bunch of errors and that. So sometimes it's best just to stop the server, come in, get everything done, and restart the server. Sometimes if you're just making some little changes in here, you can leave the server running. But when you're doing something substantial like this, probably best just to go ahead and stop the server, okay? And then we have another component that we need to create. It's called the to-do list.jsx. And we're going to go through all of these files, at least to some extent. And so we've got a to-do list.jsx. Let's go ahead and grab that code as well. Okay. And I think I have everything. Just to, mention this, you all know because you've used it a lot, make sure you got, autosave, you can have it. I used to never do it, but recently, kind of more like this semester, I just started doing autosave. Makes things are easier. I was always in a habit using editors and that always hitting Control S because a lot of things didn't have autosave a long time ago. So I'm trying to get out of that habit. I still do it, even though it autosaves. I try to save it anyhow. So now, okay, so something else we're going to want to go ahead and do here is there's this app.jsx file, and we're going to go ahead and change this. So this was the app that's currently run, that we currently seen when we ran this thing and looked at it. This was the app, right? It didn't have much in here. It was just some logos and that, right? Just a little bit of stuff here. It had that little click. You could click on it, right? For the count. Here's the count, on click for the count and all that. So basically, we're going to replace everything in here, okay? So in your assignment, it says update the app.jsx file. So we're going to grab that. And I'm going to grab all of that. And then also we want to go ahead and update our CSS. So the CSS was designed more for that little sample app. So I've got some other CSS for us for this, and this is going to actually be like 3 pages. So sometimes what I do on that, I don't know, things work different for you sometimes, it depends, but I kind of go to the end of it and come back up. For some reason, it works better for me. And then copy that. And always, watch what you're cut and paste and verify it, because it's easy to miss something or grab something extra that you weren't supposed to. So, make sure at the beginning and end everything looks good for that. And yes, that looks good. Okay. Just did that. What else is in the directions here? Okay, then after that, it's saying what? Okay. Even though that's kind of spinning there, we already stopped the server, but it's still kind of cached, so it'll stay there and keep doing that. So I closed that. So something else here, in here, we've got this main method here. So there's this index.css. So what we're going to go ahead and do is get rid of that. Okay, this is in the main.jsx. Okay, and actually, let me put a note in here real quick to make sure I mentioned to remove that line. So just wanted to add that to the assignment to make sure you get rid of that. So, okay. So now, one thing I do a lot when I'm in here, I clear the screen a lot. So I'm going to clear the screen. And then, so what I'm going to do is I know this is going to break, and I kind of want to show you what the error looks like, because there's something that we're really needed to do before it, but I kind of want to show you that, because actually if you see this error, then it makes you kind of realize, so if you see it in the future, then you'll know probably the reason you're getting it, okay? So first here before we get there, I'm going to try to start this up anyhow, okay? So let's look at our different options here, okay? So when we look at the package.json file, here's the different things you can do, okay? You can do what's called dev, right? And that what this will do is call Vite, and Vite's going to actually start that server up. That's what that did from the beginning. Builds a different one. We're not going to worry about this lint or this preview at this point. Actually, I didn't mean to do that. I just clicked that and started running. But Vite, this will actually run, this command Vite will actually start up the server like it did at the beginning, the first time. Build, this Vite.build, this Vite, it's not a dot, Vite space build actually takes this and it'll create like a index.html and it'll build and take all of your code and compile it to one. Because like all this stuff here will not work in a browser. A browser don't know what to do with all this, okay? And we'll get into this later, okay? How this Vite build is going to create something that the browser understands is basically what I'm trying to say here, okay? But we don't care about that right now. That's when we're doing like a deployment, like we want to, and what we're going to do is, so some of these apps you're building, we can put this out for your web portfolio. And so we can put this out there on GitHub, okay, where you can actually have it running out there, okay? And we're going to worry about that a week or so from now, okay? A couple weeks from now. So we'll discuss that more in the future. For right now, we just really care about running this dev command, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to use Node Package Manager, npm, and we're going to do run dev, okay? Now, like I said at the beginning a little bit ago, we're going to get an error, okay? And I'll show you why we're getting an error. Let's look at what this is saying. Missing script dev, okay? Okay, so actually there's a couple things that we're going to get an error on, okay? First, what this is saying, it's missing the script dev, right? Because I did this, it's not finding this. Well, why isn't this finding this? Well, let's look at our directory structure here, okay? We've got our directory structure, it's probably my image is probably in the way. It's got this react.js. Well, so what this is looking for when we do an npm, this npm, right? Run dev. What this is looking for is it's looking for the package.json file, okay? That's where it finds these things to run, okay? And we're in the react.js. It can't find that. It's not there. It's not there, right? It's in this folder, but it's not under react.js. So what we have to do here is we have to do a cd, and here you can just start typing like TO and then just hit tab, and it'll automatically put that in there, hit the enter key, right? So start writing it, you know, TO, and then hit tab, and then hit the enter key. Now we're in the to-do list. Okay, now we're in here, okay? And then here, we can make these all littler. We've got our package.json is at that level, all right? Now we can go ahead and run this, and it's going to fail again, and I'm going to show you why on that one. It didn't fail. It might fail maybe when we run this. Yes. So you see it threw all these errors, failed to resolve import, React icons, and then also when it did, it actually brought up the server, and if you didn't see it because it happened in a different screen, this is the error you got, failed to resolve import, right? It's because you have to import sometimes external dependencies, okay? And we don't have a lot for this app, but this was one where we created right here, these React icons. We import this. Well, this isn't something that's by default in the Node modules, okay? This is one you have to import yourself, okay? So, but when you get some errors like this, sometimes you'll see you can't do anything here. Well, because it's actually your server's kind of still running, okay? You see down here in the terminal, you got the kind of the little white thing there, so you got to kind of kill that server. hold down the control key, hit C, right? It'll kill that server. And now I want to do npm install React icons. Okay, hit enter. Okay. And sometimes you'll see some vulnerabilities. It's not a big deal. You should be careful. That's one thing you should be careful what kind of different imports you use. Some will have more vulnerabilities. And what that kind of means, it doesn't necessarily mean like something's going to happen on your thing. It's usually some vulnerabilities is you don't want to like use it in a production environment and things like that. But you know, if some things have critical, we'll deal with that more maybe if we see them. I don't know if we'll see them within this course because we're only going to be doing a little bit of a React stuff. But you know, this is good news, obviously. Okay, now we've got that installed. Now we should be able to start this thing up. And what I'm doing here on this is I'm hitting the up key. Anytime you've done any commands, I mean, this will go back a long time. I think I already showed this when we were doing the node stuff. I mean, because I've done a bunch of different things in here, and so it holds on to all that in history. So, you know, you can just use the up key, the up arrow key, and then if you go too far, you can always go down arrow key, right? But I want to do this npm run dev again, right? This uses that package.json file, and it's going to run the vite command, and the vite command is going to start up the server, okay? And like I said, Vite's really just done, that's a development tool used in development, right? So, okay, now we've got this running. I'm going to go ahead and open the server, and voila, we've got our to-do list. Let me just go ahead and add a couple things. So, and then you've got also, you can, other functionality with this, you can, if you click on this, it'll put a line through it, okay? You click on it again, the line will go away. You got this check mark, it does the same thing, right? And then also you have the trash can that you can remove it. These are the little icons that we had just imported, right? These are the icons. So these are deletes, and these will delete it, okay? So just a simple little app. You know, what's the plan for today? So the next thing I kind of want to do is walk through each one of these and just kind of explain a little bit what's going on. So this first line, import useState from React. So the purpose of this line is it imports the useState hook from the React library. Okay, useState. This is a fundamental React hook that allows functional components to have state, and basically that's data that changes over time. Okay, and it also triggers a re-render of the component. Okay, so within the screen, if state changes, it will update that component, even though, you know, the user may not see that in the browser. You know, when that state changes, it will actually update that HTML behind the scenes. It can, you know, within memory, obviously. Within memory, it'll update that within the browser, okay? So then we have our, basically our component definition is the to-do form, right? All of these are components, right? To-do form, the item, and the list, okay? They're all components. They're all JSX files, which, you know, a JSX file contains JavaScript XML, and basically, and it's a syntax extension, the JSX, for JavaScript, you know, used for, you know, React, describing user interfaces. And what it does, JSX allows developers to write HTML kind of like markup directly in their code, right? So if you go to each of these JSX files, you'll see some HTML-like code in here, right? This is what this returns. Okay, and each one of these are the same. They return something, right? Some HTML-like code, right? Looks a little different than what we're used to. Okay, but don't we just started looking into React and Node, and don't expect to understand all of this. It's kind of more just a quick introduction. The biggest thing we're trying to achieve here is just you be able to understand some of the basic concepts of React and Node, and be able to get things working. Okay, get things working. So back here, this is our component name, right? And so this defines the component. It uses, let's see. It uses what's called object destructuring. So to extract the add to do function from the component's props. So this is passed down from a parent component. So if we look at the to-do list here, as you can see, we have this add to do. Okay, we're importing. We're going to come back to this file later. We're importing the two other forms, right? The to-do form and the to-do item. We're importing both of those into this list, right? Here we got an add to do, and if you see down here later, so this is basically setting these to-dos, and then it's doing this to-do form, right? And then it's calling this function add to do equals add to do, right? So this add to do here is this function here, right? Right in here. So this is passing this in. So when we're saying this, it's passed down from parent component this to-do list is the parent component, okay? So this add to do comes from the parent component, okay? Next we have on here, we have an arrow function called handle submit. And within here, this is called from the on submit of the form, right? It's on submit of the form. So basically we do prevent default. You're familiar with that. This row here, you're basically trimming the input. And this input is what? This input is a state variable, right? You created an input, set input, and use state. Whenever you do this use state, you're using a state variable, okay? It's tracking, it's keeping an eye on that it's keeping an eye on that element, okay? And anytime this changes value, it's going to re-render this on the screen, right? By default, you're doing a use state here. We just pass in an empty string, okay? And then here, basically, like I said, we're doing input.trim, and then we're saying, does this have a value? If it does have a value, then we're going to do an add to do, okay? We have an ID, which is just creating a random number. We have text, which is the input here, and this is basically our variable here that we're actually tracking, our state variable, right? And then we have an is complete equals false, right? It's setting this by default because this is adding a new to do, right? So by default, it's going to set it to false. Then here's our form. Like I said, we have an on submit. We're handling our submit. So it's going to, before, it submits this form, it's going to do everything that's in here. And obviously the first thing you're going to do, like I just said, you prevent default because you're wanting to do some things before you submit the form, right? Before you submit the form. I'm not going to go through all of this, just trying to give you an idea, a little bit of an idea. And you've got a return here. So this is going to return, like I said, all this HTML with all the populated data. And you have to make sure you have an export too, right? You're going to export default to do form, right? The next one here is the to do item. And in here, we've got, we're using an external module, right? So this, and what this does is this is the, on the screen, it has the little trash can icon and it has that little check mark. Okay, so these are the icons that have been imported from there. And if you remember, for us to get this, for it to actually work, the first thing you have to do is install the module when we do npm install, or you can do, npm, the lowercase I for short for install, but npm install, and then the name of the module, which is React Icons. Okay. And what that actually did when you did that install, it actually put it in here. If you go, and I know there's a lot of stuff in here, and I know it probably could be kind of confusing, but if you go down here, before the install, React Icons would have not been there, right? But now it's there, okay? And these are other icons that are available as well. So, but that's now in the node modules. If it's not in the node modules, it's not going to work, right? So that's why you have to do that install. Okay. So then here's your next, here's your component definition, right? Function called to do item, and it has a to do, a complete to do, and a remove to do, right? So all of these come from basically the same concept, this object destructuring, and this comes from, the parent, right? It comes from a parent. So the parent is the to-do list. So if we look for to-do item here, here's to-do item, and you can see it's passing in all of these things for you, okay? To do, remove to do, complete to do, complete to do, remove to do. These are all being passed in. Remember, these are being passed in from the parent, okay? And that concept's called props, okay? It's come from the parent. The component expects to receive it from the parent. So this to do, so while this first one, this to do is, it's an object that's containing the to do data. So whatever you, in the screen, whatever you put in there, if you put in there, do laundry, wash dishes, buy milk, change oil in your car, whatever you put in there, that's going to be a to do item. And that's going to come, that is going to be part of, different things, right? The to-do is going to be what? The to-do is going to have an ID. Where's our to-do? It's going to have an ID, right? The ID it's going to be a random number, right? But, let's just say it ended up coming back as a 1. So your ID is a 1. Your text is, say, do laundry. And then is complete is going to be false, right? By default. So that's what's going to get populated in there. Okay. Some of this is, a little bit more advanced than we've talked about in the past, but I don't want to get too far involved in this. The important thing to understand is these are all functional components, okay? And the way that the child components, okay, child components are usually going to be past properties from their parent component, okay? And, it could be multiple levels. One component could be the ultimate parent, and then you could have a child component, but that child component could be parent of another component as well. But remember that, they're always going to be passing usually things down to the child components, okay? Always remember within a JSX file, it's going to be rendering something. It's going to generally return something, okay? It's going to return some piece of HTML, right? And it looks a little different than what we've done in the past because it's a special kind where it has embedded, you can embed your JavaScript within here so you can actually do things, okay? Dynamic things, right? But always going to have you're always going to have a return where you're returning some HTML-like, right? And you're always going to have an export. Okay. Like I said, I didn't want to get too far involved. The important thing is to really just learn some of the basic concepts, some of the terminology, and it's really just about getting it to work in your getting it to work and bringing the code in. You're going to be doing a lot of cut and pasting, but if you just kind of follow the directions, you should be fine. So please let me know if you have any questions, and have a good day.